conducting this assessment? Is it to improve students while they're with you? Then it's a formative assessment. If it's to evaluate students at the end of a program, end of a class, it's a terminal kind of analysis, it's summative. So the question is, why am I assessing the way that I'm assessing? Am I wanting them to improve, or am I judging the effectiveness at the time? What type of evidence are you going to look at? If you're looking at student work, test, paper, performance, you're looking at their work, it's direct evidence. You're looking at that answer. If you're not looking at that, if you're taking a survey, you're listening to focus groups, then the information is indirect. You're making an inference that they learned from the conversations, right? At the end, when students graduate, we send a survey to them. How was your experience at Eurocosta? Loved it, great, perfect. Well, they just graduated, they're in a euphoria of it, but it may or may not be. Or you may ask the question, Bob4 looks like George Clooney. Agree, strongly agree. I might write strongly agree, but the reality is I don't look like George Clooney. The method of analysis, which is, what are you doing to capture that question? Are you getting quantitative? Are you trying to explain, describe, or predict? You're going to use quantitative data. If you're trying to get into that deep, how and why are they learning, and letting the students' information come out, and then you make a conclusion, it's qualitative. Are you doing something academic, or are you doing something authentic? Am I making sure that they understand the elements of doing a blunt cut, or doing a hair color? Do they understand the concepts? I may do that by a test. Or am I doing something evaluative, and then I want to know whether they can do it? I may watch them do the blunt cut. So knowing how to do a blunt cut from reading and knowing the elements of doing that in a cosmetology program, heck of a lot different than doing it. But each assessment has a purpose. It isn't that one's above the other. The problem is if you only do one, you can't conclude what the other would provide you. And then what's the ultimate question? Is it improvement? Am I trying to get value added? What does that student start with, and what do they leave me with? Or is it an absolute skill that we want them to be able to have? So let's take a look. What vocabulary are you finding in this assessment plan? What jumped out at you? Any of the vocabulary we just did? Because becoming more conversant in this vocabulary is going to be critical. That site team comes out in October, and you can say we conducted formative assessments, that we were using this qualitative analysis, we were looking at kind of a portfolio. You're going to blow their socks off. But what vocabulary, what are you finding that we just talked about? So anybody, raise your hand. I know you have to stay with me during lunch, and your carbohydrates are getting low. Yes? Really loud.
Direct measure.
Where's the direct measure that you find? Well, you see a direct measure in two things. What are the two direct measures that they're looking at? A quiz. A quiz is the direct measure. You're looking at that student's score. And what's the other?
Report.
The research report. Those are two student-produced reports, bits of evidence from which you can conclude whether this outcome has been met. Okay? What else can you find? Skyline is one of the few community colleges that got commendations on their outcomes assessment work. They take it very seriously there. What else? Vocabulary are you finding? And by the way, look at all of this on one page. On one page you have all of this information. Not 5,000 pages, not, pages of narratives. Yes, sir, your name and your discipline.
I'm actually not very disciplined. All early journalism. I wanted that thing's loud.
It is.
Articulate.
And what piece of the outcomes vocabulary are you learning?
It's under the expected SLO, so that focuses exactly what you want to have happen for that SLO. Articulate and focus research.
Oh, well, yeah. And by the way, I did want to focus on articulate, and that is when you're picking outcomes, and when you think outcomes, hear the word out in it. It's what that student is leaving you with. And when you're doing that kind of analysis, you want to be able, those of you familiar with Bloom's taxonomy, those of you that are not, Room was a professor at the University of Chicago about, well, 60 years ago, and did an analysis of the kinds of studies and created a taxonomy of the types of questions. And he came to the conclusion, sadly, that most of the college assessment were either knowledge or comprehension, these lower level things. Who's the 16th president of the United States? Right? How many states are there? That's lower level thinking, and we spent too much time. He then created a hierarchy that said, a taxonomy, if you will, by saying there are different higher questions that you can ask. Not just who's the 16th president, but what was the role and impact of the conflicting northern and southern states or empires or economies at the time of the Civil War. When you're able to answer a more vivid kinds of question, you know who the 16th president is. You've included it in your question. So the more you're able to ask questions that allow them to analyze, synthesize, create, evaluate, you're doing college level work. So you pick a verb like articulate, their outcome, but I want to ask you about their measures in a second, about whether or not they're doing that, but that they can articulate a research question. So high-level Bloom's taxonomy kind of verb that they're looking for. More vocabulary. Come on, guys. Lunchtime, Friday, we're here. Yes?
Qualitative and quantitative.
Where did you find qualitative? Where did you find quantitative outcomes?
Qualitative would be your criteria of 80%. Qualitative would be your student perception survey.
I would, it's possible. I don't know the questions. Whenever you ask a question on a survey that you carve out the answer, BobP4 looks like George Clooney, agree, don't agree, are you crazy? When you give those particular answers and you restrict what that student can be, that's quantitative, because that can be manipulated numerically.
But if they're open-ended questions that are on the survey, it would be qualitative.
Yes, very good. If it's open-ended questions, I said, I don't know what the survey questions are, but they're open-ended and you're looking at the vivid, that student freely responds, it's qualitative. Yes. So we were talking about the paper itself at one of the tables, whether that was qualitative, in the sense that that student's producing work from which you're looking at the how and the why of their understanding. So maybe even the research report itself is qualitative, right? It's like looking at a performance. Anybody else? A couple more guys, you can do it. We're going to kick you out here a little early, but we've got to get through a few of these things. Hi, hands up. Your first name and your division, your discipline.
Becky, and my division is Consumer Family Studies.
Okay.
Down on assessment 1.3, with the assessment at the end of the class, would it be summative? Would that be an assessment, the summative assessment?
I would argue that maybe all of these are summative, right? I mean, you're looking at whether or not that person is able to put it together. Where I thought you were going to go is, let me ask you, I'm going to put you on the spot. Okay. That survey, is it direct or indirect? Are you looking at student work? Or are you looking at...
No.
So what kind of...
Indirect.
It would be an indirect assessment.
Indirect.
You see what they're doing?
Yes.
And what Skyline is trying to do is look at three things.
Right.
They're looking at tests, so they're measuring content knowledge. They're sitting here looking at an actual real work, authentic assessment. This is probably more academic. You're asking questions. You know the various sources of the library. This is more authentic. You're going into the class and looking whether the work is done and then measuring the data. Over here you've got a survey. How was the experience? By the way, if you use those three particular methods, what's that called?
Triangulation.
Look at this. Well, give her a hand. Yeah, absolutely. And notice, by the way, that's kind of getting into the assessment plan itself. Does this assessment plan make sense to you? They do this assessment over 3 years. Notice they're assessing every semester on these outcomes, but in a different way. So every fall they give the quiz. Every spring they look at the papers. Every spring they give the assessment. Notice it's in a 3-year cycle. What do you think that's being aligned with? It's aligned with their program. So every year they're producing an assessment report annually. We're doing this in aligning it, and we're doing it annually, and we're going to
I was thinking maybe the strategic plan, because it's a 3-year.
Yeah, the other part that I was, is right, that is probably aligned with the 3-year strategic plan. That's what the commission is going to be looking for. You're not just assessing randomly. Because when questions are like, well, how often do I have to do this? And is one, I've got 5 outcomes. Is one a year for 5 years? It's already an idea, the commission's already scratching their head going, where's the connectivity? You should be assessing that makes sense to provide information that's giving you a program review. What's the program review doing? Informing whether you're meeting your objectives, your institutional objectives and your strategic plans. So the assessment that you do isn't about how many and what often. Is it making sense? To me, I was so impressed. This is just to be managed. Right? We do the quiz and whatnot in the fall, and they get that information and they gather it together. Then in the spring, they kind of change the page for it, they get the assessment, then they write their paper, and then they do a survey when they need. Good work on the annual. But not overbearing, but timely and hard for filling their program. Yes, sir, in the back.
A couple of things. 1.2 seems to me could be formative as well as summative. Could it not?
Tell me not.
Well, if you're assigning a written research report in the middle of the semester and maybe one at the end, you're actually assessing work as it progresses through the semester.
Yeah, it's
actually formative.
Okay, yeah, and what I would argue in this way, and that is, if you were going to look at subsequent papers that student writes and other things, definitely so. But the person who came up with the terms formative and summative assessment, evaluation is a guy by the name of Michael Scriven. He's at Claremont. He worked with Bloom on these. And his conclusion on the speech was, all assessments formative.
Okay.
We're all looking at something to make them better and I'm assessing. But your question could be, if there's going to be feedback to that student so that they can write better papers in the future, I would argue, yes, it's formative.
All right, in devising SLOs, should they be only formative, only summative, or a combination of both?
You're the faculty member. You tell me, why are you assessing?
Well, I know I am assessing. I want to make sure that my student knows how to write better in April than they did in February. And I want them to know that they know how to write better in May than they did in April.
You are much better at your craft than I am. You are a faculty expert on evaluating formatively because I see it's the way to get my information. It's coming to the faculty with dialogue and talking. We're making changes to ourselves, our curriculum. We're putting in the program review to make changes to get resource allocation, demonstrating it. You make that call because you're saying that doing this kind of analysis makes my program myself better. So I think yes. But you may want to do something like the basic skills. We wanted to see how did they go through the pattern. But don't lose control of that ability. The outcomes assessment, you're the faculty expert. And you then, when that commission comes, say, this is why I'm assessing the way I am. I've been doing this X number of years, and this is what I'm doing. This is critical information that I can share with my peers. Helps me determine whether the curriculum is working, and I run it through, and guess what it's doing? It's matching up to our mission. No one's going to come in and second guess it. Where they're going to come in and second guess it is, show me that it's being done. Show me that there's dialogue.
Because I'm Linda, I teach psychology. Because my students are different every semester, and I don't necessarily have an ability to track them from semester to semester, the same students, I would be wise to do these 3 different types of triangulation of assessment in one semester with the whole set of students, or it wouldn't make sense to do different types of assessments, different semesters, because there's no follow-through with the students.
Think about the Baltimore County analysis that we just did. You're coming up with a research, you're a faculty researcher. The key is going to be what can you manage and get done? What's going to keep you vivid and not burn out the other faculty? And what are the limits of the analysis that I'm doing? So when the results come in and say, geez, I did this all in one term, I'm not getting kids from term to term. I might have a hiccup. It might be a normally good class, a normally bad class. Maybe I want to repeat this in a subsequent year to see whether that trend analysis is done. Right?
Bob, can you use the microphone, please?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, I will. Her question, or what I was trying to get at was, Do that same analysis we just did with Baltimore County. When you sit with your researcher and you start thinking about the benefits and drawbacks of doing all the assessment in one semester, have that conversation with your researcher, which is you're going to grab a bunch of kids, but what's the problem? You may have a hiccup semester. I've had them, right? You have students that are all great, they come back next semester and you're like, where did these guys come from? So then you start looking at trends and saying, well, what is that going to do? Now I'm going to have different students. So the key then becomes analyzing the good, the bad, the ugly of your research. And I really do say, when I say faculty, when I say assessment, it's faculty research. It's faculty, classroom, and program research. Hey, how about a couple more, because I want to ask you whether a model like this, because we got to start, I know you're tired, got maybe one more thing to do, but I got to get next steps in mind. I want you to shine come October. I want when that team comes out in October, that the faculty outcomes assessment part, you want to do. Let me show you what we're doing now, and I'll give you some suggestions of what I think you should do between now and the time that they come. And that's really why I came. It's why I drove 7.5 hours yesterday to come up here, stuck on an oil spill at the Newhall Pass or something. It's because I happen to be passionate about this. And when a fellow community college takes a hit, I went up to CCSF the same way. And I'm here because I'm a peer of yours. I'm not a profiteer. I'm not, I'm here because I'm in the role and we were where you were. That's why I came up on a Friday, right? That's why I have 7.5 hours drive tomorrow. I want you to excel. I really do. Let's look at a couple more things and then wrap it up and let's talk next steps, because I'll be back in about a month and I want to make it more direct. I really want it to be more of a clinic. Hi.
I was counting this and it overwhelmed me all of a sudden when I realized if I teach 3 different courses in a year and I multiplied it times 3 different assessments per outcome, I came up with 18 measures.
You're taking course level now.
Yes.
Yeah.
I teach 3, well no, I'm thinking, 3 different courses.
Yeah, this is more at the program level, because it is the interaction between the library and that. But yeah, it does become a question. Let's talk about that.
We're talking about that at our college now, is what is the cycle and how much, how often, and how many.
Yeah, go ahead. I'd rather you guys talk about the issue.
One of the things we were talking about is the issue that we have realizing that some of our SLOs are not adequate. And we're now in a position of how do we end up with a plan to assess the SLOs when it's looking like we have to go back and redo some of those SLOs to have it ready by October.
Yeah, and I came here today with that exact issue. I sat back, I looked at your outcomes, and a lot of them need some work because I think you need some good solid training in plumes, dialogue about what you want to measure. The second thing I noticed from your outcomes assessment is, are your measures measuring what you think? For example, Skyline maybe made an error. Their verb is articulate a focused research question. How are you going to measure that in a test? How are you going to measure that in a survey? Are their assessment methods going to capture the information that they want to have? So I sort of made the decision today, after looking at a lot of the stuff, that we'd work on buy-in. We'd work on the fact that this stuff makes sense and there's something down the line that you're supposed to be able to do. That's what my outcome with you guys is today. But we are now getting to the point where I really wanted you to be, which is I was afraid, I'm going to be honest with you. If I came down here and started hammering you on outcomes and how to write them from the very beginning, I would have lost you. Here we go again, rewriting them. But when vivid questions like this come in saying, you know what, maybe our outcomes are not very good, you're seeing the value. You're seeing that this has purpose, not you write the outcomes, get the damn things done, but you don't even know what the hell the verb I wrote. So I would like to come back. What I would like you to do, if possible, between now and October, work with what you've got. Do two things at one time. 2 things at one time. Number one, let's make the outcomes better in your assessment method. Let's do that and show them that by October. But let's at least start making decisions now based on the outcomes assessment as incomplete as they might be. So it's double pathway. Keep doing that. Don't lose the stuff that you've already done. I would like you to sit back and say to them in October, you know what, we wrote these outcomes and they weren't as good as we want, didn't capture what we want, but we still made the following decisions based on what we had. That question that somebody asked saying, do I need this to be an experiment? No, we make the decision on what we have and we flow with it as experts. But you know what else we've been doing concurrently? Looking at our outcomes. And you know what? They're not as high up in plumes as they should be. And they're not mapped to our program level outcomes very well. So we are doing that. And by the way, Commission, here's what we did from 12-13. Here's what we're doing 13-14. Better outcomes, better methods, so you can see two things. We're improving in both ways. Does that make sense? Because you don't want to lose what you've had to be able to say you got something. Admittedly, maybe not the best. That's okay, but it's continuous quality improvement. I showed you openly our evaluation system of our rubric. We stink, but the Commission signed us off. Why? You've got processes in place to catch this now. We don't expect you to be perfect. We expect your processes to be in place. So what I'd like to do, and build with you the last few minutes that we have together, is see where we're trying to go. Showing you the way outcomes assessment should be, because my analysis, my direct evidence, I look at your direct evidence and the program reviews, you didn't have the buy-in to the process, you were just going through the motions. They weren't informing anything. I want to show you now that it does have value. Now that it has value, make decisions. Guys, you need to come up and get your outcomes assessment data from this semester and roll it into whatever program review you have come October. However it may be. You don't want to say to the Commission, well, we didn't roll it in because we rewrote our outcomes. But son of a gun, we looked at whatever the heck we did have. If you could say to them, we've been relying too much on quantitative, we're going to go qualitative this semester. You see what you're showing them in the vividity of the analysis? Not other stuff. So I get passionate about it because this is why I became a faculty member. 25 years ago, I was a special ed teacher. I did this because I wanted people to learn. It's the only thing we give to the next generation. It's the only way I definitely live on, is pass on to the next generation what we learned. Isn't that when we became faculty members? Why I did. So let's do it, keep possession of it, get rolling, and then demonstrate it to the leadership so that they can empower the changes that need to happen, close the gaps. Make sense? Hi, I'm sorry. I went on one of my tirades and...
No, you needed a tirade. Good. Julie, I get this, and I've been stressed for a month because I'm on the SLO subcommittee. And so my question is, this is new, and this is sort of, this is do what you do it well, and now show that you're doing what you do well. So it does create a little extra work. So my question is, how are faculty members, are we going to get the support, like nuts and bolts, during the semester, the hours, with our colleagues, to get this work done well? Because right now, we don't have any flex days during the semester, during the year. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, conversations are happening now.
We cannot do this work and work our full loads.
We are. Yes, there are colleges. Mesa College in Arizona takes up their 16-week semester and adds what's called assessment days. College closes for 2 or 3 days during the semester where they do their formative stuff. Time stops. Doors are closed. Even the student services departments. The college is closed. We're assessing right now. We're evaluating. We're having analyzed meetings and whatever. So the question then becomes carving out that time, because otherwise, when you're going to get it done? And there's where that honest dialogue with administration and leadership happens. It can't devolve, I'll be honest with you, if it devolves to workplace kinds of issues, where, well, we're not going to do it unless, you're on the wrong road. The issue becomes, what are constructive ways that we can carve out time, because I'm here on Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, you're here on Tuesday, Thursday, and we never talk. So bring those issues to faculty and collectively come up with ideas to say, what could we do? And there's I don't know if you have a calendar committee on here, but there's that kind of information from program review that says, we're not having vivid conversations because we're not meeting. Maybe we structure our schedule this way, and finals go on this day, and we have assessment days 1 day a month. Make sense? Yes?
And if I could piggyback on what Julie's talking about too, another thing we need to establish on this campus is a culture of safety where people can share their results. And failure is an option, and failure is a way to learn. So we can fail forward and become better. But based on past practice and evidence, we don't have currently I don't think we have a culture of safety at COS. And we need to establish that, and we need to honor that. And because if people feel like they present data that's bad, that shows that they failed, again, based on previous experiences, people have been fired, people have been, funds have been removed, people have failed.
For outcomes assessment results?
No, I'm just talking about in general. Not for outcomes assessment.
No,
but just having that culture of safety as a campus so that people will feel comfortable to share their data.
And that was my question to you 15, 20 minutes ago, was how do we get to a stage at this college that a department can come together and say, the intervention that we considered went the wrong way, and feel comfortable that it was the experimental nature that's being rewarded and not the fact that the results are down. Because I've heard that 3 or 4 times when someone said, am I going to get program review money if my results are down? Right? So building that kind of concept, but I tell you, it's coming together. And at my own institution, I can only speak what we did. I didn't say it was easy. We come together, and faculty and leadership came together and voiced what the concerns were. Right? And what we need to be able to do. I need to be able to do this kind of stuff and know I won't be punished for it. I tried, it didn't work. That's positive, not necessarily. You know what's going to happen. You're going to cook the books. I knew that you were going to raise your hand. Isn't he here? He's here. He snuck in, but he's here. And see, there's where they need to hear these concerns so that valid conversations can happen. That respect each other as peers. Remember that model learning organizations? And you can't be hierarchy, management, whatever. You guys have got to come together as peers. If we keep that old thinking of 1942, which is we're the union, and they're the management, and it's this, we're not looking at student learning, we're looking at our relationships and protecting our job. That is an important question about workplace conditions. No question. It's not the conversation today. The conversation is how do we measure student learning and how do we change what we do? Leave that conversation for workplace conditions for another building and another day. But it is conversations that need to come up about, we want to do this, how do I know it's safe and how do I know I have time? A couple more minutes here, guys, because I want to cover a couple things. You've been troopers to have to put up with me for a couple of hours, but I've been trying to show you that outcomes assessment is critical. It really is critical. And when I come across a college, and I work with maybe 25 community colleges, when I see faculty raise the issue of, here we go again, it's no child left behind comes to community college, it's these kinds of things, I realize they don't really know what it is. It's about them being faculty, finding analysis and getting it together. And so that's why I came here today with this perspective in the morning, which was, guys, you really need to be doing this, and you need to pick up and carry your edge of the box and carry it to the other side of the room. Gladly. And now we'll talk about perhaps the next time I come out. Because what I want to do between now and then, I want to put something like this together, and we'll work with your track data. Where are you? Getting the information so that we can start generating these reports and coming up with assessment plans similar to Skyline. I'd like to do that this month with you. Then when I come back, we have it much more directed and we make it a boot camp on, here's my outcomes, here's my assessment, are they mapped, are they working? Here's my courses, here's my program, are they mapped up? I'll be happy to come out and work with whatever you guys want to do. But I felt that if I did that right away, you wouldn't be buying into it. You'd be like, here we go again. I needed to show you at Maricosta, we make decisions. We hired those faculty biology instructional assistants. We put them in the labs, and we're assessing whether those rates go up based on what faculty told us. It took bravery for the biology instructors at Maricosta to say, our lab scores are not where we want them to be. But we're so busy in the labs, if we had instructional assistants, we could focus on the teaching and they could focus on keeping them on task. And we're testing it. right? That's what we're doing. Hey, one last, and let's go back here real quick. So I wanted to look one more time because the reason I'm doing this is so that I can generate something that we can get some traction by October. Something to get rolling. And I would really love you guys to be able to show them in October that you made decisions this semester, you assessed this semester, you took the data, you put it in, you rolled it in, you had meetings, you rolled it into your program review, and the good, the bad, and the ugly, we're making decisions. We made priorities and plans, gave them to the Budget and Planning Commission, the committee, and out the door they go. But we're also getting better at writing them. And when you come back next October, wait till you see what we're assessing. Right? Clearer and whatnot. But let's go back one last couple of minutes on Skyline. Because again, they're an award board. They won a power award given out by the planning group in the academic senate for the work that they did. Let me just share you what else what you can see. So you caught triangulation. You caught qualitative, quantitative. Notice, whenever you're doing a numerical analysis, you're doing quantitative. But this is quantitative and qualitative. That is student free verse, free performance. You're looking at their writing a history paper of whether or not they articulated a research question, but you're also manipulating it quantitatively. Over here you have direct measures, indirect measures. By the way, are these capstone or are they embedded? Are they part of what the students are doing in their classes, or are they something in addition as a capstone? Yes, sir. The first name.
They look like embedded.
And why do they look like embedded to you? It's a quiz.
Something they're doing right now. The research paper it's embedded through the class, although you could make it a culminating project to do at the end, so I suppose it could at that point be considered capstone, but it looks embedded to me.
Yeah. And so we'll get some other vocabulary. We've got formative or summative. We've got some academic measures. We've got authentic measures. It's that kind of vocabulary, being conversant with what it is to be faculty researcher, that's critical. Because then when you're writing your summaries of your assessments every year, or you're doing the particular analysis in your program review, you're using the vocabulary. In the fall, we did a summative assessment. But it is a question for you guys to start talking about an idea of how do we get this all done? How do we get course level when I'm teaching 5? I can tell you, and think about it, if you would accredit, by the way, the accrediting commission is not the government. The accrediting commission is us. It's peers. The people who came in as your site team, they're all of the other community colleges. They're the ones that wrote the evaluation report. And I really recommend strongly, I heard that you guys are going to work on fast-tracking some folks. Get on a site team. There's not enough faculty members on site teams. Not enough. There's when you're going to come back, and let me tell you, the self-study process is amazing. You'll come back transformed. When you go in as a peer and analyze how you're meeting student learning and make recommendations to that college to get better, and then bring back what you learned to the institution here, outstanding experience. It really, really is. So I want to go back to one slide. I'm going to kick you out, and I really appreciate it, but I didn't know when and how I could get you again. But my outcomes for you, and think about and reflect as I would as an instructor here, is do you see the purpose of buy-in? Do you see the connection of need that it needs to play in your objectives in your program review? Do you see that this stuff really is going to play a role? You see the hurdles that you need to get there? What I'd like to do, let me tell you what I'd like to do over the next month, and then if I come back again, May 3rd, we're talking about? We'll make it a boot camp. We'll make it a boot camp of getting all of these things. Bring your outcomes, your measures, and let's start populating them. Let's go back. Are you clapping that I'm leaving? She is that you have Janet Foltz at Bakerfield. She was chairperson of the committee and wrote books on outcomes assessment. You can come in here on a Friday working with your faculty, hashing through as well. You know what I mean? You should be happy to.
Well, let's go back to where it's got here. But the disadvantage that I'm at is that this is my first day with you, and I'm trying to get an assessment. I'm doing assessment right now. I can tell them doing the faculty members that do my life. They're sort of here.
I'm doing assessment here. I can look around there. I was a faculty member. I've taught, believe it or not, every class. I'm not teaching the doctorate programs. I know when people are not paying it. You can tell in the room who these people are not going to move. You know the ones who are going to move. And you applaud. You know, you've got an adjunct instructor here who's not even being paid to be here. That's somebody that wants to get better. We need to talk about the issues, how to get adjuncts involved if they're teaching 30, 20, 30% of the classes. But the key becomes really critical. As I came here to work with COS, I came here to work to make you guys better. Because we went through it, and I hope that you can.
Last slide, and let's talk about what we're going to do. So,
what do you guys need to have done by October? And I apologize because time's not your friend. Time is not your ally right now. We need to get moving and we need to get flying and we need to get rolling. So let's review the things that I think need to happen by October and what I will do for you next steps and then what I expect and hope that you guys would do. And to the extent Tract Act solves a lot of these questions, Joni, let me know. The first thing is we need to come together with an annual cycle. I'm going to send something to you and I'll have it forwarded to you by Jennifer. You need to come up with an annual cycle that starts to plan when this assessment is going to happen, similar to what you just saw from Skyline. Right? What is this loop? What are we doing every semester and mapping it out so that you knew not just getting it done, but what's happening over the next couple of years. What's happening if program review is due in October and the data comes in the summer, when does the doggone assessment stuff need to be in? And when do the meetings need to take place? And how can this be tracked? The second one is that I probably spend more time the next time I come up. What's the assessment loop? How do I go from identifying my course outline of record, setting the 3 or so outcomes that I want, come up with outcomes measures, assess them, analyze, and keep that cycle at my course and at the program. The one thing that I noticed that the college is struggling with, and we can talk about next 3 weeks from now when I come, what the hell's the program? It seems that you guys are really able to get this rolling in the course, but what the heck's a program? I'm going to pick on anthropology if you're still here. If anthropology is 3 courses put together, doesn't lead to a degree, what role does it play in feeding transfer and feeding social sciences degree? So I had that conversation of how do I measure in my class, not only do they know mores and culture and things like that, but how to make them a thinking person, because I know it's a program level outcome. We'll talk about how to map those. Develop the assessment plan. So something simple. I'm thinking of just putting together something simple like Skyline does, where you can put together, check whether you're triangulating, come up with a schedule that you can process it. The key is going to be come October that you won't have made decisions yet based on your outcomes assessment because your cycle won't be ready yet. But when they come in October, invite them to a program review meeting. Come on in. We didn't do this very well in the past. We do come on in and watch what we're doing. And show how decisions are being made on those 5 reasons why you do outcomes. To become master teachers, to analyze curriculum, to reallocate or repurpose resources, to become a learning organization, to not be that factory, and for accreditation. Checking those things off and being able to have that dialogue. And then the key is, when you go in January, keep the process rolling. Submit them something in the spring. We have now made the following prioritizations based on the outcomes assessment rolled in the program review. Bam. Here's another example, another example. And when you come in October, you're going to see this. And the last part is creating ways to check. Somebody asked, I don't remember your name, sir, in the jacket. What's your first name? Steve? Steve asked right away, what the heck were you looking at in the rubric when you made these determinations? That's what we're evaluating. So you need to be able to show, I'm doing outcomes assessment, I'm making sure it's mapped to why we're here, and not only that, periodically I step outside and I see whether the process is working. Is it working? Is it too much assessment? We're doing so much assessment that we're not talking. Well, then how much is enough? That evaluation of the systems. That's what you need to be able to show folks. And let me tell you, at my own institution, the last kind of feeling that we had was, it doesn't get, we were on probation. And it came to a discussion of, we like our jobs. And we like doing what we do. And frankly, coming to the table as a humble hero, everybody came together. The leadership in the past may not have been as strong as it was. But maybe faculty could have come together and picked up the process a little bit more on outcomes assessment. Right? It's not here about blame. Throw that out the door. We got rid of that at Maricosta, man. This isn't about saying it's your fault. It's your fault. Well, it's your fault. That's down the road, man. You don't have time for that. When they come in October, the reality is we're all on the same ship. And perhaps we didn't make the decision, so look at what we're doing better. And we weren't bought into the outcomes assessment process like we should. You're right. We are now. That's the kind of conversations you're going to have with them in October, so that, because they're going to go back and report to the commission, do you see stuff in place? Do you see paradigm shifts? Yeah, wow, did we ever? But if you guys are in that point of view of saying, well, let it ride, or the other guy to do it, not good. Or you're going to sit back and let the same, at every college, the same 25 people do 90% of the work. Don't do that anymore. Become part. When this governance structure gets done, and Eva starts talking about here's the role of councils, and here are the roles of committees, I'll be a co-chair. What do you want me to do? Because all of those particular committees and councils are the decision-making process, shared governance, participatory governance, working. Unfortunately, what happens, participatory governance, it starts to look more like union negotiations. No, we're here as peers coming together. We all add something to the table, and we collectively improve student success. That's really what you need. Let me tell you something. We did that. We came back the first visit they had, and we were still on probation. We were not feeling too good. We came back and said, that's it. Enough. I don't want you to get to that stage. Because we were on probation, it's like, oh, we'll be off in 6 months. And then 6 months later, we weren't. And finally, people said, all right, here we go, let's do it. And then 8 months later, we had a master plan in place, we could show that outcomes are being done. That team came out and said, we believe you. And let me tell you something, we are not the same institution. Look at the stuff that I showed you. Analyzing, checking, prioritizing, we never did that before. So I want to thank you for putting up with me, but hopefully I can come and show you that the passion I have for it is what I want you guys to be able to do as well. It's not compliance. It's not no child left behind. It's about keeping the promise we have to the community. Last couple of questions. I'll certainly stay around. Some of you have asked and said, can I talk to you on it? Let's get a forum set up so we can answer these questions. As I said, I've created a wiki that the management team has already making comments to. Bob, I have a question about how am I going to do this when I'm evaluating foster care and I'm doing this. Can I roll that into my program review? You know, those kinds of questions I'll be happy to answer. Yes, ma'am.
I would just like to share, this has already been very helpful to me, and I want to be sure that we have access to all the information up there. I noticed we shared a lot of slides that were not on the handout. Will you email those to us or make them available on the central?
If you say pretty please.
Pretty please. Pretty please.
No, I will. We're going to put all of this on resources and put together. And what I'm going to do, you can watch the video that I presented for you guys. But I think what I'm going to do, based on the questions, is make some quick 5-minute Camtasia videos. Tell me a little bit about my measures. Tell me a little bit more about this. I run the listserv. I'm a moderator of the listserv on learning outcomes assessment. I recommend, I'll send you the link to sign up. Get on that outcomes assessment listserv and say, I'm in psychology, can anybody share me outcomes they're doing? I guarantee you 7 other community colleges will tell you, well, at Sonora we do this, and at Solano, or City College we do this. They'll be happy to share what they're doing. So I invite you to get part of that, and I will share them with you. Send me, Bob, do you have good sociology ones? I'll send them to you. No, the wiki's different, but we're going to have to invite them. She'll get the role to me. The reason why I have to secure it is because if I don't secure the wiki, then every Russian bride that wants to marry me will join on that template thing. You know what I mean? You leave your space open and there's 7,000 Russian brides that want to marry me. So what you want to do is I have to restrict it. You guys come in and do it. But if you have questions, come and see me. I have no problem. Thank you. I talked too much to you guys, but you did some work. I thought. Thank you.